This is Malia Brady. I'm a certified personal trainer, certified nutritional therapist, and I make little videos like this about health, fitness, nutrition, that kind of thing, because I'm a huge nerd and I'm really into fitness, and this is the kind of stuff I like. And I know I've had questions about this stuff before, so I always think somebody else out there might have the same questions. So I was at the gym the other day and I heard some guy clearly trying to hit on a girl and giving her this armchair fitness advice. But he was telling her, he was like, yeah, you got to not take a rest for more than 15, 20 seconds, no matter what you're doing. That's going to keep your heart rate up, keep you burning lots of calories. No matter what you're doing, don't take a rest for longer than that. So I was like, all right, guy, that's not quite right. Maybe you'll get a date with this girl. Maybe she'll be impressed either way. But I remembered, when I first started working out, that sounded pretty reasonable to me. If you don't take a rest, your heart rate's up, you're sweating and breathing hard, you must be doing the right thing, right? But that's not really the case. As I went to school and, I was a biology major, and as I've become a personal trainer and have had to do so much study about the human body and how we're fueled and how we get through our workouts and things, I've learned that's not quite the best advice he could have given this girl. So I want to talk a little bit today about rest and recovery and why those are so important, and kind of the different fuel systems we use in our body and where do these rest intervals come from. So first of all, our bodies are pretty smart. They have lots of different ways to get us to do things in the most efficient way possible. The cool thing about our bodies is that they don't spend any extra energy than they have to, kind of like I am on Sunday afternoons. So our bodies are designed to be super, super efficient. So we have a couple different ways to make exercise or any other kind of physical work happen. So let's talk about the difference between rest and recovery. Recovery, let's see, let me have my little notes here so I don't misspeak. Recovery is when you are finished with your exercise. Usually happens when you're sleeping, or you take a planned day to maybe even a week off of your workout, and you do that so that you can replenish your fuel stores. You can repair any damage that you've done to your muscles, because when we exercise, we're actually damaging our muscles. So any of those little tears in your muscles and things, those aren't going to be repaired at all during your workout. You're continuing to just rip up your muscles, which is okay. That's how they get better, but you're not going to be fixing that at all, probably until you go to bed that night. Another thing you're going to do is you want to replenish your glycogen stores. Glycogen is stored sugar in your body. That could take 2 or 3 days, maybe a day if you're really carbing it up that day. But basically my point is, true recovery, to get your body back to that baseline level where it should be, is going to take a while. And that's why we say you should have these, planned rest days in your program, no matter what you're doing. You take one full day at least where you don't do anything. Physical exercise wise. And even if you're doing stuff like me, I run all the time. I do have a few days a week where I just don't run. I do other stuff, but I don't run because I want to give those muscles and systems a break. So that's recovery. That's getting you back to baseline. What I really want to talk about today is rest periods, and the reason these rest periods are in place, why they are what they are, and that's based on these fuel systems. So let's say you first start working out, you're fresh, you're ready to go, you're going to hit the gym and lift some weights. I advise for people who are trying to build strength, and if you're just going and you're trying to set a new PR for that day, you're going to start with that hardest, heaviest lift, because clearly you're fresh, you're not tired, you're fueled up, you're not breathing hard, your heart rate's not up, you're totally fresh and ready to go. So you're going to try your 1 rep max. That 1 rep max, you can only do it one time. If you can do it 2 or 3 times, it's not a 1 rep max. Your 1 rep max is that heaviest weight you can only lift one time, and believe me, you are struggling, but you're trying to set kind of a new personal best. When you do an exercise like a 1 rep max, you are using stored ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It is a molecule in your cells. And think of ATP as money within the body. Your body needs ATP to get anything done, just like we need money. It's our body's form of currency. So ATP is always being formed, it's being broken down, and anytime that happens, energy is either absorbed or released, blah, blah, blah. But we can't hold very much of it in our bodies because it's a really big molecule. It's very heavy, so it's not very efficient for our bodies to keep a ton of it there. So we have just enough for 1, 1 to 3 seconds of absolute 100% totally maxed out effort. After that, it's gone. It's going to take about 90 seconds to replenish that stored ATP that's in our cells. It takes a while. That's why after you do a 1 rep max, you better sit down. Don't do anything. You need your heart rate to recover. You need your breathing to get back to a little bit lower, and most importantly, you need those ATP reserves to replenish. So what happens when you're doing maybe something that's not quite 100% total effort? Say you're doing a 3 rep max, or you're doing like a 40-yard dash running, or you're doing like some Olympic lifts. They're hard. All those things are hard, and I wouldn't classify any of those as like a cardio or endurance exercise. So the next system down, once your body has exhausted that 1 to 3 seconds of stored ATP, is called the creatine phosphate system. So this is why you see, bodybuilders and stuff taking creatine supplements, because we want to make sure our body has plenty of stored creatine to be able to complete this reaction and give us energy. So creatine is something that's stored in our muscles. We have a lot more of it than we do that stored ATP, and this can give us a good 10 to 15 seconds of some pretty good effort. So that though, once we run out of that, we've done our little 3 rep max set, we've completed that totally crazy all-out sprint, we got to really recover. It takes a long time to get that stuff back to normal. So I would say 2 to 5 minutes. If you're doing a really heavy strength set, sit down, drink water, don't do anything until that stuff is replenished. So like this guy was saying, oh yeah, 15, 30 seconds. Buddy, you don't have anything in the tank. You got nothing working the kind of fuel systems that you're trying to work by doing these strength exercises. So that was a terrible idea, guy. So don't do that. So 2 to 5 seconds of rest. That's where these rest periods came from. They're not arbitrary. That's really how long it takes for our body to refill those tanks, so we can go through that with maximum effort. Again, you don't want to get all sloppy in your lifts because you can't use the appropriate fuel system. Okay, so that's number 2. So that is 10 to 15 seconds. But let's say you're working out longer than that. You're doing a 100-yard dash. You're doing like a 10 to 15 rep, kind of a hypertrophy set lifting. We got to have another option, something longer than that. So here's the trade-off. Your body has this next really cool process called glycolysis, which means it's breaking down glycogen, glucose, stored sugars in your body. We've got a lot of them stored in there. It's a finite amount. We can't just stuff ourselves with Rice Krispie treats and pasta and be like, yes, I'm ready to work out. But we can hold a lot of it because we can store it in our liver, we can store it in our muscles, but we got to be able to break it down. So for something up to 3 minutes, a good quarter mile or something like that. If you're slow like me, maybe, I don't know, runners probably go faster than that. But it's not like you're out on a 50-mile bike ride or something that's not quite a full endurance bout, but it's definitely more than 15 seconds, kind of an intermediate thing like that. You can do anaerobic glycolysis, which means that you're getting fuel without oxygen. So if you hear somebody talking about this is an anaerobic exercise, that's what they mean. So this is the only time your body does not need oxygen to create fuel for you to do this exercise. So what that means, you're using glucose, straight glucose. If you're using this fuel system, you cannot use fat. You cannot burn fat in this range because fat requires oxygen to be broken down for fuel. Can't do it. So, you can do this for up to 3 minutes. During this time, your body can, if you're running out of sugar, it can use amino acids from protein and glycerol from fats to make sugar, but man, it's a long process. And the reason you don't get quite as much power from these events, that's why you can't do a 1 rep max over and over and over again for 5 or 10 minutes. It's kind of an inefficient process. This takes 10 steps, whereas the creatine phosphate and ATP cycles, they only take 3 steps. So think of it this way, when you plug in an outlet, you plug in an extension cord to a power strip to an extension cord, you're losing a lot of power that way. It's kind of leaking out here and there, and that's what happens in this 10-step process. So for up to 3 minutes, you're doing anaerobic glycolysis. After 3 minutes, you're out running several miles, you're on a big old bike ride, you're doing a cardio endurance step class, spin class, something like that. You are in the aerobic training zone, aerobic glycolysis. We are using oxygen to help use sugars. At really low intensities, your body's going to be doing mostly fat. So if you're out on kind of an easy little jog, you're going to be burning a good amount of fat. But the trade-off is you're not going to burn as many calories if you're working at a low intensity. Like, if you do a yoga class, you're probably burning like 70% fat. And you're like, yes, awesome, I should do yoga instead of run. So that way I'll burn a lot of fat. You will burn a lot of fat, but not as many as if you'd gone out and run 10 miles. At higher intensities, you are going to burn more carbs, more glycogen, sugar, but that's okay because you're going to burn more calories if that's your goal. So those are the 4 kind of different methods our bodies can use to obtain fuel. And, we have these rest periods for a reason. I just wanted to make this video so you don't end up like that guy and be trying to push yourself for 15 seconds. If you've done a 1 rep max, wait 90 seconds before trying to do it again. And honestly, I wouldn't try to do a 1 rep max unless something went really wrong. I wouldn't try to do more than 1 for each lift per day because your body was totally fresh and ready to go at the start of it, and now it's not. You damaged some muscle fibers. You're not as good as you're going to be that first time. But if you want to try it again, wait 90 seconds. If you do those 3 rep max, really tough strength sets, you got to wait 2 to 5 minutes. No getting around it. Your glycolysis sets, endurance activities, that's just all going to depend on how intense your workout was, how long you were working out. You might need to take a day or 2 off to get everything back to where it was at your baseline. But mostly what I want to say is just don't neglect rest. Don't neglect recovery. And it's not just like, oh, I'm tough, I don't need to rest. You're not going to be as good as you could have been if you had gotten in that rest. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. If you guys have any questions about this stuff, I hope I didn't nerd out on you too hard today. Excuse me. Send me a message, shoot me an email if you have any questions about it. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye-bye.